All right, so we're here starting off at my micro worm bin because we want to check in and I want to teach you what the number one problem is with new worm bins. And that is that we give them too much love. So what is too much love? And we're just going to kind of look at this paper towel here, make sure there's no worms on here. And too much love is too much food, too much moisture, too much checking in on them, all the things that we do to try and make sure our worms are doing fantastic, and it's all our fault. So we're just loving on the worms too much. And right away, I see an earwig. We're just going to let him go. But right here, I don't know if you can see on my finger right there is a cocoon and a worm right next to it, along with a worm right here and another one right there. Now, it has been 38 days, if you can believe it, since we have been digging around in here, and we've got a fat one right there. That is great. And another one right there. And it's been 38 days because we had a couple of hurricanes come through here, and I will talk more about that on another worm video. But what I want to talk about today is how well these worms are doing with really a lot of neglect from me. I put in a lot of shredded cardboard earlier, and we started them off with just one single piece of watermelon, and look, lots of them right there. They did really well without me tending to them too much. I only fed them once in that 38 days after that initial feeding, and I did spray it down a couple times just to make sure that it was moist. But what I didn't do was come in here like 5 times a day and check on them. I did come in about every 5 or 6 days and kind of give it a little aeration and make sure that no moisture was pooling on the bottom, and it is doing fantastic. What happens when you love them too much, and I am just as guilty as anybody else when I first started out, is you just want to constantly check on them, and you want to make sure that you're not underfeeding them, right? So you just keep giving them a little bit, a little bit more. And what that does is it provides too much food for them. They can't get to it. It goes anaerobic. It starts rotting before they can get to it, and the worms can't handle it. It gets fermented, and all of the area down below starts to lack oxygen, and moisture gets down lower, and then they cannot breathe, and they breathe through their skins. So as we're going through here, I'm looking at this big worm right here, and it has a bit of a green sheen on it. So I think it may be an Asian jumping worm. So I'm going to pull it out, and yep, sure enough, we're going to put it in a container next to me, and I'm going to see if that other big one that was in here also has a little bit of a green sheen, because that is not the type of compost worm we want in here. We may have to go through a few times, and as they get bigger and grow, to see if something like this might be an Asian jumping worm. Could be a juvenile. I'm not sure. So we'll let him stay in, and as they get bigger, if they are, we'll pull them out. I think I see one right here. Let's try and pull them out real quick. I got so excited because I thought I had a big fat red wiggler in there, but really what we have is an Asian jumping worm, and we don't want those at all. Yep, that one also has a little bit of a sheen on it, so let's take it out. I'm hoping this is not a worm bin full of those, but it came from my compost pile, so I know there's some red wigglers in here. So like I said, the last time we were in here, we put some watermelon in, and then we put our amendments of worm chow, coffee ground, and eggshell grit in, and then we came in and checked on it about 20 days later, and the watermelon hadn't been totally eaten, so we added just a little piece of sliced cucumber and a couple lettuce leaves. That was it, along with some shredded cardboard on top. So what I'm gonna do today is pick from this little assortment and feed them. So I think we'll go in with one strawberry, and I'm just gonna kind of rip it open right there for them, and we'll put in a piece of celery, and all this was frozen, and now it is thawing out, so that's why you see that so juicy. And I think we can even put a piece of apple. That seems like a lot of food. In fact, on second thought, I'll take the apple out, because again, too much love. You don't want to give them too much love this stage in the game. This is just some pulverized eggshell. We'll throw in just a little bit of coffee grounds, and then we'll go in with just a little bit of worm chow, just like that. So yeah, even me with years of experience can tend to give them too much love. So let's put on some shredded cardboard, and this has been dampened, so that is good for a new worm bin because it doesn't have too many worm castings to retain the moisture, and they eat this cardboard. So I think that's why for 38 days, when they only got fed once, they were able to munch in on this cardboard. So as you see in here, we've got a lot of sticks. That's because this worm bin was created for absolutely free out of my compost, and I just grabbed some compost and the worms that were in it, and this is what we've got. So this is the micro worm bin, but let's switch over to my tiny worm bin and show how a normal worm bin kind of progresses. So this is my tiny traveling worm bin, and it was supposed to go on an adventure up and down the East Coast, but unfortunately Hurricane Milton prevented that. So instead we flew up there and we drove back, and we just had to leave the worm bin because from the time our power came on until we were on an airplane was 3 hours. And check out the worms, doing great even though they've been neglected for so long. And I am seeing some mites, so we are actually going to remedy that towards the end, so stay tuned. But let's go ahead and dig in and see how they are doing from their last feeding. And I just put a handful through and lots of worm butts all over the place. I love it. So the last time we were in here, we added some shredded cardboard and then started with a leafy top of a carrot. Then we added in a banana peel, a lettuce stalk, red watermelon, a broccoli piece, a strawberry top, along with a bunch of little vegetable pieces. Then we added in our amendments of worm chow, coffee grounds, and eggshell grit. And at the end, I believe we put on a couple of paper towels, and I don't see those anywhere. The first thing my hands grab, it looks like, is a corn cob, and they are in the center of that. And we'll just keep breaking those up as we see them, but I don't expect to see too much of that other food. Now, we did come in and feed them one time some other food, which I don't think I recorded, so they didn't go the whole 38 days without food, but things are looking great. I have so many castings in here with just a few pieces of shredded cardboard. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna give them one kind of last big feeding, and maybe we set up for a migration. As I'm digging underneath, I'm kind of aerating, and I'm also looking to see that we don't have any pooling water underneath, but it does feel great. I mean, as I squeeze it, and I didn't squeeze too hard because there's lots of worms in here, it sticks together, but it also crumbles up really nicely. So we are not too damp, and we are also not too dry. I don't see any kind of mites, forming in one area. They seem to be throughout, and they are really good in critters that help the worms shred up all the food and turn everything to castings. So I don't mind having them in there. But what I do need to do, I think, is I'm going to take that plastic off and I'm going to leave it off. I'm just not going to put it on because I don't want to get these castings any more wet than they already are, because I want them to be nice and ready straight from my garden. Now, this worm bin max capacity is about 1,000 worms, and I know that from counting after several harvests, and I think we're there. These worms are looking great. They're looking for every little last scrap of food and shredded cardboard, and they're doing a great job of that. So we're going to go ahead and set up for our feeding and put it right down the middle like we normally do, and I'm just kind of lifting up the last bit and aerating it all out so they have all kinds of oxygen flowing through this bin, and there's no pockets of anaerobic activity or fermentation. So let's make a trough right here, and this is kind of what I do every time I feed. I kind of inspect it, lift it up, aerate it, that kind of thing, and then I throw down some shredded cardboard and feed. I really don't come in between those times and check on it, but you can. If you have a new worm bin and you're feeding maybe once a week, you can come in after 3 or 4 days, but try not to do it every day and try to just keep it to one time between feedings.
You got a baby on your hand.
Oh, I got a little baby right there. So let's get that baby off. Thank you, executive producer, for letting me know that. I started to grab some shredded cardboard and it's moist from my previous bin, but because this bin is so saturated with castings, I'm gonna go in with dry shredded cardboard. So there we go. We'll lay down some shredded cardboard just like that. And like I said, it is dry. And here's what we had in mind to feed. We've got all kinds of stuff that I froze and then I let sit on the counter and thaw out. And these are just some food scraps that we had left over. So we'll go in with some juicy celery right there. And then I think this was a peach that we had. It was organic, and then I left it on the counter for a few days, and there you go. It started to decay. We've got some peppers here, and actually all kinds of different colored peppers. And let's go in with that apple from the micro worm bin and some more of these strawberries right there.
Very colorful.
I hate to do this because it's such a beautiful, colorful feeding, but we're going to put in some worm chow. As you notice, I'm putting more in than we put in that micro bin because this bin probably has 40 times as many worms in here than in the micro bin. Next, we'll just take some of our used coffee grounds and put that in there as well. It's a great food source for them. And then we'll put in some pulverized eggshell grit right on top for them. And they use that in their gizzard to break down the food. So this is a great feeding. I do say this all the time, but I hope hope to be in here in about 1 to 2 weeks time to check on them. We don't have any events coming up and hurricane season is almost over, so I should have no excuses. But this tiny worm bin has been counted so many times, and a lot of you have given me suggestions to maybe count the micro worm bin. So maybe when that turns to all castings, I'll give that a count. But even though we're getting pretty close to harvesting, I'm going to add some more shredded cardboard on the top because I know this is moist and it's going to evaporate up, and we'll add this paper towel as well right there. So as much as I want to add the plastic here, the executive producer said, don't do it. Oh, I'm just so used to having it up here, but I do need to go on experience and keep this off. So I hope this video with these two kinds of worm bins has kind of taught you what the #1 problem is, and that is just too much love. It's not anybody's fault. It's just that we are trying to help our worms grow. What we really need to do is just kind of back off a little bit. Now, I've been running this tiny worm bin for about 2.5 years, so if you want to see how I've been doing it, hit that subscribe button. It's free, and check out my tiny worm bin playlist to watch all of our adventures. Now, as you've been watching this video, you might have seen some mites, especially if you play it faster than normal speed. And I want to show you this video right here where I teach you how to get rid of excess mites if that's something that you're interested in. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope your worm bins are doing fantastic. So happy vermicomposting, everybody. Take care now. So we'll go in with some shredded
Shredded celery?
Yeah. So we'll go in with some juicy